What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. I'll start this podcast out by talking about the news. First, a couple UFC fights that have been announced. One of them being Arman Sarukian versus Renato Moicano. It will headline the UFC Fight Night on April 29th. This is a great fight between two amazing fighters. I can't wait for this fight to happen. Also, Jack Hermanson and Brandon Allen has been announced for a UFC Fight Night on June 3rd. Now, in the last episode, we talked a little bit about Muhammad Mokaev and his injury, and his MRI did show that he had a partial MCL tear. Now, he said he will rest for 6 to 8 weeks before starting to train for a fight, hopefully in July. And in the boxing world, the Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue fight has been postponed as Inoue has suffered an injury in training. It has been said that it is not a major injury or a serious injury, and Fulton has already stated that they already have a date in mind. So I do believe it will happen in July or at the latest August. Now we'll get into this weekend's fights. First, we'll start off with the UFC. The UFC fight card started off perfect with two amazing fights right off the bat. Then the card really cooled down a bit, and then we got some horrible news during one of the fights, and that was that the Alex Perez versus Manel Kape fight was canceled due to medical issues that occurred to Alex. Now, he has had pretty bad luck as a lot of his fights have been getting canceled, due to many reasons with him and his opponents. This was a fight I was really, really waiting to watch, really looking forward to. They had a little bit of words for each other at the weigh-ins, and hopefully this fight can happen. If not, what do you guys think is gonna happen next between these two? Maybe Alex should move up. Let me know what you guys think. Now, getting right into the main event, it started off in typical Chitovera style, that being he wasn't really doing much. The first round, Corey was really pressuring him, mixing everything together, having Chito thinking a lot. Corey was able to land a takedown in that first round, controlling most of the fight with the top control. Chito was able to cut Corey with elbows. The second was Corey all the way as he had top control most of the round. The third was finally when Chito started to do something. They did spend most of their time on their feet. It was a very, very close round. You could have it going either ways. The fourth again was a really, really tough call as it started off with Chito stuffing Corey's takedown attempts, but neither really landing much on their feet. The fifth started much like the fourth, with Chito stuffing Corey's first couple of takedown attempts until Corey was able to land a takedown and hold Chito on the ground for almost 2 minutes. After Chito was able to get up, they exchanged good shots, but ultimately Corey won that round. And it was surprisingly a split decision victory for Corey. I'm saying surprisingly as a lot of people were really surprised that Chito won one of the cards. Now, I personally don't believe Chito won 3 rounds. I believe he won maybe the third round if he won any. And Corey just had a very, very good game plan going into this fight, as he knew Chito would start slow, and that just came back to bite Chito in the ass. Now, who do you guys think each should fight next? I personally feel Chito should fight Umar Nurmagomedov. It would be a great fight, but Chito has called out Piotr Yan on Twitter, and Corey obviously called out Merab Dvalishvili during his post-fight press conference. Now in the top rank card, starting off with Raymond Murataya versus Humberto Galindo. Ray was dropped in the first round by just making small mistakes up against the ropes and leaving his chin out there. I feel as if it was really more of a flash knockdown, but in the second it was a lot of the same things that happened in the first. Raymond wasn't able to stay off the ropes and getting hit. It looked like if he hadn't really fully recovered yet. Now, as the third came, Raymond started looking way better as it seemed he had fully recovered. And that's really when Ray started to take over and control most of the fight. He was able to knock Galindo down in the third with a nice body shot. Ray did have some occasional blunders up against the ropes. It was really nothing major as Galindo wasn't able to land any more meaningful shots on Ray. And as Ray controlled the rest of the fight, all this led to a ninth round stoppage with a beautiful body shot. You know, it was being said on the broadcast that Top Rank wanted Raymond to fight Jeremiah Nakatila on the Loma versus Haney undercard for a WBC eliminator. How do you guys see this fight going between these two if it does happen? Next up was Antonio Mireles versus Patrick Mailata. It was a very hard fight for Mireles as he was dropped in the third and he was able to win the fight by split decision. Some people don't believe Antonio should have won, but it was really, really close. Next up, it was Sanisa Estrada versus Tina Ruprecht. In the first, it was Sanisa really working Tina's body and switching stances. Tina was connecting with looping shots while Sanisa was leaving her hands down and overextending, but Tina wasn't really following them up with anything. It was a total domination from Sanisa the whole fight. She maybe lost one round the whole fight. Such a great fight for Sanisa. Hopefully she could fight Yokasta Valle to unify all the belts in the women's minimum weight division. Valle also won her fight this past Saturday, so hopefully we can see that next. Now we'll get to the top rank main event. The fight was between Jose Ramirez and Richard Commey. You know, it started off with Ramirez and Commey both landing big shots on each other, but a big body shot by Ramirez landing on Commey, really hurting him. You know, the rest was pretty much both exchanging punches for the next 3 rounds. It was Ramirez getting the cleaner shots landed on Commey. An amazing first 3 rounds for Ramirez. The fourth was a better round for Commey as he landed a couple great shots. You know, they looked at like if they really did hurt Ramirez, but it was Ramirez coming back, hitting him with those body shots. But I don't think it was enough for Ramirez to win the fourth. Now from the fifth on, it was a so-so fight as Richard was finally using his jab while both fighters having good rounds and landing shots. The volume really went down as they both got tired up until the 11th round when Ramirez caught Commey with a clean left hook, dropping Commey. And after Richard was able to get up, they exchanged a little bit, but ultimately Ramirez dropped Commey again with a clean body shot, leaving Commey unable to continue, ending the fight. Who do you guys want to see Jose fight next? Me personally, I would love to see him fight Regis Prograis or Arnold Barboza next. I only had one problem with this fight, and that was the commentary from Tim Bradley. He was just making it sound as if Ramirez was getting beat down in the middle rounds when the fight was close. Now, these two have not had the best relationship at all, as Ramirez has came out and spoken about Tim's commentary towards him and his fights in the past. And it's not a good look for Top Rank to have a commentary person talk so bad about your fighter, even when your fighter is doing a good job and winning the fight. There was a point after the first knockdown of Commey where Tim clearly sounded surprised that Commey was hurt and left wondering what Jose hit him with. It's like, are you even watching the fight? Personally, I think Andre Ward should step up and be the lead commentary for these fights. Next, we'll talk about some of the Showtime fights. a fighter I mentioned in the preview was Cody Crowley. He was in a tough fight against Abel Ramos. It was not an easy fight for Cody. He was almost dropped in the 11th by a clean right hand from Ramos, barely staying up. You know, it was even the knockdown even went into review, and thankfully it came out that his glove did not touch the canvas. Now the fight did end in a majority decision victory for Cody, and I believe this was the right result. You know, so much respect to Cody for everything he's had to go through to get to this fight. You know, I don't really want to talk on the matter, but you know, so much respect for him and everything he's been through. Next, it was Chris Colbert versus Rayo Valenzuela. This fight started off with Rayo landing an amazing left hook that floored Chris. We did see something different from Rayo this time. He seemed calm after the knockdown and didn't try to rush anything, finishing the round nicely. The rest of this fight was really good as Chris was patient and boxing most of the fight, while Rayo was landing the more powerful shots, visibly hurting Chris multiple times, having him up against the ropes and really damaging him. None of these shots led to another knockdown as the fight went to decision, and it was surprisingly a unanimous decision for Chris Colbert. I don't believe this was right. Rayo was landing the more powerful and cleaner shots and just outlanding Chris in general, as I do believe Rayo won this fight by decision. You know, these decisions are the reason boxing is losing the love people once had for it. It's clear and obvious fights and fighters that they want to make. I'm sorry for the rant, guys, but how do you guys believe this fight ended? Personally, I believe 100% that this was a bullshit decision, the wrong decision. Hopefully they can run it back. You know, Chris has said in his post-fight press conference that he is not willing to run it back as he feels Rayo was being a sore loser. But, you know, personally, I just feel that was the wrong decision. The co-main was Jesus Ramos versus Joey Spencer. You know, Ramos really dominated Spencer, dropping him in the first and ultimately stopping him in the 7th when Spencer's corner threw in the towel. I believe this was the right decision from Spencer's corner as he was taking a lot of damage. Next up was the main event that was 5 years in the making, David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. I will be breaking this one down round by round, saying who I think won the round and why I think they won the round. The first, I believe, started off very tactical and strategic for both fighters. With little happening, I would give the round to Plant as I felt he had more success finding his jab. The second, I also believe Caleb was able to win as he was landing the cleaner shots on David, and David wasn't able to land anything really. The third, I believe, was David trying to engage more and landing the nicer shots on Plant. Now, the fourth was really close with both landing nice shots on each other. I do believe Caleb was able to win this round. The fifth was a round I believe David also won as he landed the cleaner shots. Now, getting into the sixth, this is when I believe the fight started to change as Caleb really started to see as if he was tired. You know, his game plan going into it was to use all of those 22 inches from that ring and just run around, clinch David, which is a very nice game plan. It almost worked. David was finally landing body shots in the sixth, and you know, this is the reason why I believe he won that round. The seventh was a lot of the same from the sixth, also leading to David winning this round. The eighth was a great round for David, as it looked as if David really hurt Plant. And as he was just about to start attacking, the ref, Kenny Bayless, called timeout as he wanted to get a cut on Caleb's face checked. The ninth was another domination by David. The 10th was really when you see all the damage on Caleb start taking its toll. He looked really, really beat down. And I have heard that this round was the round where Caleb's corner was standing up, thinking about throwing the towel in. Thankfully, they didn't. The 11th was another amazing round for David as he was hurting Plant with almost everything he threw. The 12th was an amazing round for both fighters, showing heart, going at each other. All this leading to a David Benavidez victory by decision. True class from both fighters. What an amazing fight for both. There was some people that were really giving Kenny Bayless bad reviews after the fight for not calling Caleb out for excessive holding and claiming this was the reason Caleb wasn't knocked out. But all that aside, a great job by both fighters, giving the fans a great fight. How do you guys think the refereeing was? I personally don't have a problem with it, as it's David's job, to get through that, to knock him out, going against all adversity. Do you guys think, from what you've seen, is David ready for Canelo? And what do you guys think Caleb should do next? I personally think that David is ready for Canelo, and it would be such a good fight. Thank you guys for staying until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you later on this week as we talk about the upcoming PFL fights and the top rank card. See you then.